Are we on? Yes, we are on.
Okay.
So I am here today with Robert Dick, and we are going to talk about the Kingma System flute. Now, this is going to be a three-part installment where I will have Robert Dick, Carla Rees, and Eva Kingma herself all talking about the Kingma System flute. So I broke it up into different sections where each of my interviewees are talking about different things. So today I would like to show you my Kingma flute first. I just bought this about two
Sure.
weeks ago. And it is just beautiful. It plays wonderfully. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions for Kingma System flutes and why we need them. And I find that a real shame because I have had a blast improvising on this thing. So let's have Robert talk a little bit about it. I would like to know some different things myself. I think Kingma System research is relatively lacking from the internet. You know, I'll go to look up something and I'll be like, no one's talking about this. No one knows about this. So I'm really excited that I can use the Flute View as a vehicle for my knowledge and for everyone else's knowledge. So, as many of you probably know Robert's awesome compositions, his teaching, his recordings. He has done so many different things. So let's start off here with I would like to talk about when you first heard of the Kingma System flute, because you've been one of the big pioneers for extended techniques.
Yeah. Well, back in the 70s, I developed the theory
Okay.
that, if you could get every combination of open and closed holes, that you could transpose multiphonics and other sonorities, and that the BAME system, um, which is an incredible design for one note at a time and the notes in the chromatic scale,
Mm-hmm.
becomes an irrational obstacle course if you're trying to move, say, multiphonic sonorities around.
Absolutely.
Uh, and so, I did work in that direction with Albert Cooper and at IRCAM in Paris, and made some progress. But the Kingma system is the first really workable solution. The important things about it are that it's based on a BAME flute, so that anybody who can play the flute can pick one up and play it. You don't have to learn the new fingering system. And ultimately, in the far future, the fingering system, I think, will change, but that's not going to happen anytime soon.
No.
So now, um, the Kingma system flute got stuck with this unfortunate moniker, quarter tone flute, and basically two groups of flutists were influential in helping bring it about. And one of those groups was people very much into microtonal music and quarter tone music. And certainly the improvement in quarter tone playing that this flute brings about is enormous. The Without knowing it, when Louis Lott developed the open hole flute, the center holes in the open hole keys actually make pretty good quarter tones.
Mm-hmm.
Like here, try to. But then when we hit the parts of the flute where there are no center holes, you wind up doing cross fingerings, some of which are pretty Byzantine, and so the not only is the are the fingerings clumsy, but the sonority actually changes, and very few composers really do their homework.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's particularly the ones who don't play the flute think a quarter tone is a quarter tone, and that's not true. There's a distinct difference in character between the ones that are created by, with this nice open venting and the ones that were done with cross fingerings. And when you start to take the tempo up, the cross fingering ones become just maddening.
Mm-hmm.
So one important contribution has been the quarter tones. Now, I'm not particularly that concerned with quarter tones in my own music. They're more an incidental thing. They show up a lot in multiphonics, but the actual nature of the scale itself, in terms of changing from a half step to quarter step, that I know is very important to some folks, but it isn't to me. My musical interests are elsewhere.
Yeah.
And to me, the ability to transpose multiphonics is the most important thing. And now, from the musician's standpoint, the player, the improviser, the composer, the flute can be treated as having holes of two sizes, small and large. The flute maker's got a slightly more complicated story, but we're just playing it. We're not doing it. So now the center holes in the open hole keys, the small C sharp, where is it? There it is.
Yes.
And the trill keys. These are the small holes. Everything else is a large hole. And basically, if you can take the same pattern of open and closed holes, so like, here's a super simple pattern. Now, most people would say, oh, that's the regular fingering for, the second ledger line D. But if we look at what's really going on, we'll see that from the top of the flute down, everything is closed, and we come to one small hole open, followed by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 holes closed. And at the moment, without doing the math, we get. Now, if you can move that pattern around, you can move that sound around just like they do. Just like they do. So, if you have an open hole flute with a B foot joint, you'll find yourself able to transpose that to 6 positions. So they are. And you get this funny feeling like, isn't that a beautiful smile with a lot of teeth missing? So with the Kingma System flute, and I'm not going to use the things on my flute that have expanded the Kingma System even more, but a regular Kingma System flute.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that in a minute, just to touch on it.
Okay, but on a regular Kingma System flute, this expands to this. And the musical implications of that are enormous.
Yeah.
Enormous. In that now we have a far greater freedom to put the sound where the music wants it to go.
Absolutely.
Not where it just happens to be allowable mechanism that was developed it was the big news of 1847. And it remains pretty big news today, but music has changed, and the flute has to change with it.
Yes.
So that's what excites me about the Kingma System flute. There's more possibilities of glissandi. Any kind of sonority you make is much more transposable.
Absolutely.
And And a lot of times on a regular flute, you can get a great multiphonic, but you can't move it anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So every piece that uses that multiphonic is going to sound alike with all the other ones. And that's a big compositional and artistic limitation.
Now, have you written any pieces for Kingma Flute?
I have actually.
Oh.
Yes, it's not published yet, but
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Oh.
well, that will come. Um, and mostly I use the Kingma System flute in my own playing, my own improvisations.
Yeah.
Um, it is for the many concerts I improvise. It is the flute I play on.
Mm-hmm.
That with my glissando head joint on it,
Oh, yeah.
and so as the Kingma System flute gradually becomes more popular, it will make more economic sense to publish music for it.
Yeah, I agree. Now, Kingma System flutes really, by the time you put in all of the features and the different things, they are selling for about the same price as a lot of the other flute makers in the similar budget. So I think that's a pretty great thing. So I agree. It will catch on. It just people need to know about what it does. They're afraid of it.
Yeah.
They look at the keys, they look at this system, and they say, oh, I have no idea what to do with that. And if they would think about it for 60 seconds, they would get it.
Well, it is just a flute. I mean, if you had never played any flute in your life at all,
Mm-hmm.
and someone handed you, an Armstrong closed hole Seafoot student flute and said, "Hey, play this," you go like, what are all these things?
Yeah.
So, but we know. So it's just a flute. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
some more keys. Now, it all depends on what mode you want to think in.
Mm-hmm.
For example, people ask me, well, what are all those extra keys? And I always say, no, my flute has no extra keys. It's got keys on it that are missing from your flute,
Yeah.
but there's nothing extra. They're all needed. And because musically it makes sense, it's not hard to learn. People are so often afraid to explore, and this is music. What is the risk? All you can do is get better. All you can do is learn things, and it'll improve your playing of Orpheus and Eurydice. So that's I just think people are well, dare one say, sometimes I'm kind of lazy. It's like, okay, I did this, and I'm just not going to do any more.
Absolutely.
Okay, but then there's the other crowd of us who are, we are intent on getting better all of our lives, and so having this tool which blows things open in terms of potential, yeah, it does mean there's going to be some homework to do, but that's exciting.
It's definitely a great tool. I agree with what you touched on, with just the options for improvisation are amazing. I've particularly had a lot of fun playing along with, you're not going to believe this, King Crimson recordings. This flute with King Crimson is a blast. And I found some Ravi Shankar that I've been playing with, and I'll put the glissando head joint on it, and it just does anything you want it to do. And it's like, it's a new voice. It's practically a new instrument when you put all of those things into it.
Yeah. Well, it's very important to remind people that it does not, because it's new, it does not lose all of the old things.
No.
That, there are different philosophies of instrument design as well, and the philosophy embodied in the Kingma system is a flute that does all the older stuff better.
Yes.
Plus, much more. So, if I was an orchestra player, I would use a Kingma system flute.
Oh
I would
yeah.
take advantage of the many ways to use new fingerings. And in my orchestral career, believe me, I've learned very quickly that having a creative approach to shading and a creative approach to pitch, well, and to color is really important because our if you really want to make your wind section sound great as a section, you can't say God gave me the pitch. I mean, you've got to play where people are playing
Yep.
and make it sound wonderful. Um, and and if everyone has that attitude, it will sound great. But there's so much more that you can do, um, and and it's hard to believe that Berlioz would say, "Oh, gee, that tone color, it's gone a bit beyond what normally happens." And although I've always been frustrated by the limits, now it's gone beyond. I'm not sure I want that. Of course he would love it.
Oh, absolutely.
And so there we kind of have it. Now on my flute, I took things further in that I added two more trill keys.
Wow.
So I've got four trill keys, and they're played from this mechanism down here with the thumb. And I also redesigned the traditional trill keys. These guys do exactly what the regular ones do, but you have the freedom to just move your finger forward and get the trill key and the key,
Wow.
which makes life much easier in the fourth octave. And then, because it's important to get for my music and my dreams musically, every combination of open and closed holes, including large holes.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the large hole of the F sharp.
Ah.
So you see, you can't actually really get this particular key up if any of these are down. That's just an engineering
Yeah.
nightmare. But you can do it this way, just like the G sharp is done.
Okay.
Just use a duplicate hole and open it there. It doesn't matter sonically where the hole is around the circumference of the flute.
Wow.
The front, the bottom, the top, they all do the same thing. So, um, okay, what else can I say?
I think that's about it. Now, I just wanted to touch on it was Brannon Flutes that made your flute that you have, the special one. So it's kind of a special order deal.
Well,
Correct?
this flute was made actually by Bickford Brannon himself,
Okay. Okay.
and and that was after a long series of discussions about what and why and how. And so then he made the flute, and I got it in 1996, and I've been very happy with it.
That's excellent. I think for a lot of us, we just, again, look at the keys and freak out. And even a flute like yours, we will do the same thing. But when you explain it so simply as just having the little holes and the big holes, it really makes a lot of sense. And you
Yeah,
see how it all flows together.
yeah. I mean, the flute being mostly cylindrical is acoustically so much more straightforward and simple
Yeah.
than a conical instrument. Um, and then my flute has been copied. Brannon has made at least three or four more just like it. And if anyone wanted one, well, Brannon would do it. And I imagine this new maker, Lev Levick, who's making Kingma System flutes, would do it as well. Okay, Lev,
Great.
you on the spot.
Perfect. Well, I think that's about it. That's very, this is very enlightening. I think for anybody thinking about purchasing a Kingma System flute, anyone who's trying one in an NFA exhibit hall, I think it's just an excellent tool to consider. So the other makers are Eva Kingma herself makes them, I believe, correct?
Yes.
And who else makes them? Is there one more?
I don't believe Sankyo is continued. I think they don't make the Kingma System
Oh,
flute.
wow. Okay.
Um, and their Kingma System flute was a little bit of a misfire for a number of reasons. So that's um, so. As far as I know, there's Eva Kingma herself. There's Brennan and Lev Levick.
Yeah.
And um, and Lev trained at Brennan, and in many ways, it's very, 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 very much a Brennan flute with some personal tweaks, and a very excellent instrument at an extraordinarily reasonable price.
I agree. This is what mine is it's a Lev Levitt for those of you watching. So, well, I think that's about it. I'd like to thank you, Robert, so much for coming on here and talking about this and taking time out of your busy schedule to talk about something that is very near and dear to you. So, is there anything else you'd like to say?
Only, that students and grown-ups shouldn't be afraid of curiosity.
Yes.
Instead, it's the joy of it. And so if you're at a flute convention and you try one, arrange to take it to a quiet place where you can actually hear yourself and where there's no pressure of thinking like, oh my God, I'm supposed to actually be able to play on this thing in front of everyone else. What can I do now? I've never had one before in my hands my whole life. Take it someplace quietly where you can actually, put two and two together, connect the shin bone to the thigh bone, and start to walk, and you'll be running and flying in no time.
That sounds great. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to turn off our recorder now, okay?
Hey, all right.
Bye-bye.